When I was in my 20s, my girlfriend accepted a temporary job several states away. The contract was only supposed to last 6 months, but it meant she had to leave home and move to Florida for the duration of the assignment. Neither of us wanted to end the relationship over distance, so we decided to give long-distance dating a chance. From my front door to the apartment where she was staying, the drive took a little more than 12 hours. I made that trip several times during those 6 months. Driving that far never bothered me much. Usually, I would take Friday off, get on the road around 5 in the morning, and spend most of the day behind the wheel. By evening, I would finally arrive, exhausted but happy to see her. Then we had all of Saturday together before I had to make the long journey home. There was only one part of the routine I hated: traffic. Leaving early meant I almost always ran into heavy congestion. Sometimes I would sit for miles, barely moving, watching the clock and wondering why I hadn't chosen another time to travel. For my final visit before her contract ended, I decided to try something different. Instead of leaving Friday morning, I would leave Thursday evening after work and drive through the night. My thinking was simple. Most people would be asleep, the roads should be quieter, and I could cover a huge portion of the distance without fighting traffic. At first, the plan seemed brilliant. There was some congestion during the first part of the trip, but once darkness settled over the highway, everything changed. The roads became almost completely empty. By around I was making incredible time. Then, the exhaustion started. I'd already worked an entire day before getting behind the wheel, and 12 hours of driving is tiring under normal circumstances. Doing it after a full workday was something else entirely. At first, I noticed myself blinking more often. Then, my eyes began feeling heavy. Eventually, my head started dropping forward. That was when I realized I was no longer simply tired. I was beginning to fall asleep. I tried everything I could think of to stay awake. I opened the window. I shifted around in my seat. I turned the music up. None of it seemed to matter. Then, I saw a roadside sign announcing a rest area a couple of miles ahead. It felt like luck had finally decided to help me. 2 miles. I could make 2 miles. I kept my eyes open as hard as I could and finally reached the exit. The rest area wasn't anything impressive. It wasn't one of those large travel plazas with restaurants, fuel pumps, bright signs, and people coming and going. This place was tiny. There was a small brick building with one broad entrance. Inside were 2 bathrooms, one on each side of a narrow hallway. The parking lot was almost completely empty. I pulled in and shut off the engine. Before going inside, I got out and stretched. I did jumping jacks, walked around the car, rolled my shoulders, and tried to get blood flowing through my body. That's when I noticed another vehicle. It was parked all the way across the lot. I couldn't tell whether anyone was inside. I tried the men's bathroom door. Locked. That surprised me. It wasn't a single-person restroom, so I couldn't understand why someone would have locked the entire room. Still, I wasn't desperate enough to force the issue. I walked back outside. I stretched some more. I paced around. About 10 minutes passed. Still, nobody came out. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I returned to the door and tried the handle. Still locked. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. No voice, no footsteps, not even the sound of movement inside. The rest area was nearly empty, and the silence suddenly made everything feel much stranger than it should have. I checked the women's bathroom. The door opened. Before entering, I knocked lightly and called out to make sure nobody was inside. No answer. I stepped in. I felt ridiculous being there, but I needed to use the bathroom, and there was no one around. I locked the door behind me. After finishing, I washed my hands and splashed water onto my face. That's when I heard something. A faint tap. I stopped moving. A moment later, it came again. Someone was knocking on. I was exhausted. I was in an isolated rest area. There was one other person nearby. Maybe everything had an innocent explanation. Maybe the other driver had simply moved his car. Maybe the footprints were old. Maybe someone had been in the bathroom the entire time. I repeated these explanations in my head until I almost believed them. Then, the bathroom door creaked open. Slowly. I immediately realized I'd forgotten to lock the door behind me. I heard the lock click. Someone had entered. My hands began shaking. Footsteps moved across the floor. The person walked toward the stalls, then stopped at the stall beside mine. The door opened. The person stepped inside. I looked down. I could see the tips of his